Us from Baltimore to discuss Boko Haram's latest violence is Nii Akuetteh. Nii is a scholar and policy analyst who specializes in African affairs. Nii, thanks for being on the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
So how concerned are you that these attacks outside of Nigeria's borders will expand from a regional conflict to a much wider conflict affecting many other countries in Africa?
Extremely. I am extremely concerned because the geography of the area, yes, Boko Haram started out in Nigeria. Yes, most of the attacks have been on Nigerians and Nigerian territory. But if you draw a radius from Maiduguri, the main city that they have attacked, and maybe about 200 miles, you go through several African countries, Chad, as they have done, Cameroon, Niger, Benin, and especially what concerns me is Central African Republic, which is pretty close nearby, which has had its own Christian versus Muslim fighting with a lot of enraged Muslim militias. And therefore, the Boko Haram issue is very regional problem, even a continental problem. But from Washington, I have argued very much that it is an international problem, and Washington should help, the international community should help the Nigerians deal with it. It is a global problem.
So what should the Obama administration community be doing by dealing with the problem? What should they be doing?
They should be providing the Nigerians with, and the regional force, because you know, just about 10 days ago, the African Union actually authorized a force of 7,500. So it's not just the Nigerians, it has continental support, and they need equipment, they need intelligence. You know, the new attack, Chad, that we are talking about, they came in the middle of the night in boats across the lake. Now, if these equipment, like night vision equipment has been provided, if there was aerial surveillance, I dare say that they would have been seen. So I think the reason Nigeria and the Africans are struggling, they may have some vulnerabilities of their own, but I think personally that the international community has not given sufficient support. They haven't taken the problem seriously, certainly not as seriously as Washington has been taking the ISIS problem. They don't equate the two, and I sometimes think that Boko Haram is a far greater danger to the area, to Nigeria, to West Africa than ISIS is. And therefore, I think the international community needs to stop treating it as a second-class problem.
The outrage you're expressing, is there this kind of outrage inside Nigeria, inside Chad, in Niger and Cameroon?
Well, I think that you asked a great question, Asiye. I think, honestly, not as much, because they are focused on what their governments are doing. A lot of Nigerians are critical of the situation, but they're looking at their government. Now, by the way, you know, tomorrow Nigerians would have voted. The elections has been postponed for 6 weeks. So 6 weeks from tomorrow, they will be electing a president. And the number one issue is why the current president has not dealt with the issue. So to answer your question directly, locally on the ground and in the region, more of the anger and outrage has been turned on the local governments, especially the government of Nigeria. But I also think that it's been 5 years, and the international community should not simply say, well, the Nigerians should be dealing with it and they have made mistakes. They may have made mistakes, but we don't say the same thing about the Iraq government. We don't say that the Iraq government has made mistakes, so we will just walk away from ISIS. So both sides, the Nigerian government needs to do better, but I think that has been said a lot. What has not been said a lot is that the international community, back in May, after the Chibok girls were kidnapped, the international community came and said, okay, we are going to help, and yet I don't see the help that they are giving. So I think they haven't done their part. They need to do more.
And isn't some of this the responsibility of the Nigerian government? There's been a lot of criticism, you mentioned this as well, that they haven't done enough. The government of Goodluck Jonathan has not done enough to find these young girls.
Oh, absolutely, that they haven't done enough. Isn't it their responsibility? Absolutely. That is the number one entity that should be leading the effort is the Nigerian government. I don't let them off the hook. I don't say that they have reacted perfectly. They have made a lot of mistakes. It is their problem. But I'm saying that when these kinds of problems are rightly seen as regional and international problems, so that if the individual country is struggling, they need help. It's like you are in a neighborhood with row houses. If there is a fire, all the neighbors come together and say, we have to help put out that fire, otherwise it will spread. So yes, the Nigerians have responsibility. They should be doing more, which they haven't. But what I hear from Washington, my concern is that people talk only about the failures of the Nigerian government, and I'm saying there are failures on the part of the international community as well. There's failure on both sides, and both sides have to improve.
Understood, sir. Thank you very much for your time. Nii Akuetteh, fascinating discussion. Appreciate your time.